My name's Rachel Williams, and I was 28 years old when everything changed. I grew up as the middle child in a family that looked perfect from the outside. My older brother, Marcus, was the golden son, varsity athlete, dean's list, the kind of kid who made our parents glow when they talked about him at dinner parties. My younger sister, Emily, was the baby, charming and magnetic in a way that made people lean in when she spoke. And then there was me, the easy one, the one who didn't need anything. I learned early that my role wasn't to shine, it was to make sure everyone else could. I organized Marcus's going away party when he left for college. I remembered Emily's friends' names when our parents forgot. I mediated the fights, sent the birthday cards, kept the family calendar in my head because no one else bothered to check it. My parents loved to tell people they'd raised 3 successful children, and technically they weren't wrong, but what they meant was that they'd raised 2 stars and 1 stagehand. I don't think they did it on purpose. Neglect rarely announces itself. It just becomes the air you breathe until you forget you're suffocating. I stopped expecting my parents to show up for my events somewhere around sophomore year of high school. I stopped mentioning achievements around college graduation. By my mid-20s, I'd perfected the art of being present without taking up space, nodding through family dinners where no one asked about my life, smiling through holidays where my gifts were thoughtful and theirs were generic. I became a supporting character in my own family story, and I played the part so well that no one noticed I was disappearing. 3 months before that dinner, something significant happened in my career. A project I'd poured 2 years into launched publicly. My name appeared in industry publications. People I'd admired for years reached out to congratulate me. It was the kind of milestone that should have meant something to the people who raised me. I never told them about it. I wasn't sure they'd even care. It wasn't one moment, it was 1,000 small ones, stacked so carefully that I didn't realize I was building my own invisibility. My 21st birthday dinner lasted 40 minutes before the conversation drifted to Marcus's new promotion. I remember cutting my cake while my mother asked him about his salary, her eyes bright with pride. Emily took a photo of me blowing out the candles, posted it with a sweet caption, and spent the rest of the evening showing everyone her new apartment on her phone. When I graduated with my master's degree, my parents arrived 20 minutes late and left before the reception. There was traffic, my father said. Emily had a thing that evening. I stood alone in my cap and gown, watching other families take photos, and told myself it didn't matter. When Marcus got into law school, my parents threw him a party. Cousins came. There was a cake with his name on it. When I got into the same caliber graduate program 2 years later, my mother said, "Good job, honey," over text, and asked if I could pick up a gift for Emily's boyfriend's birthday on my way over that weekend. I learned to stop telling them things. I stopped inviting them to work events, award ceremonies, moments that mattered. It was easier than watching them forget or show up halfway. I stopped asking for help even when I needed it, because I'd learned that my problems were always smaller than everyone else's. At 23, I tried to name it. I told my mother, as gently as I could, that I felt overlooked. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "You're too sensitive," she said. "Do you know how many people would kill for a family as close as ours?" My father nodded. "We've always treated you 3 equally. Maybe you just need to be more grateful." After that, I stopped trying. I participated in my own erasure because it was less painful than fighting to be seen. 3 months ago, I moved to a new city for work, a corner office, a significant raise, a life I'd built entirely on my own. I unpacked boxes, signed a lease, started a new chapter. I didn't tell my family for 3 weeks. The text came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in back-to-back meetings. Family group chat. "Family dinner at Castellano's 2 weeks from Saturday, 7 p.m. Everyone must be there." Castellano's? That was new. We didn't do nice restaurants. Family dinners happened at my parents' house, around the kitchen table, with my mother's predictable rotation of casseroles. The formality felt strange, almost performative. I'd been working 60-hour weeks. The project that had consumed the last 6 months of my life was going public in 10 days. My name would be in industry journals, trade publications, the kind of coverage that defined careers. Colleagues had already started congratulating me. My inbox was full of interview requests. My family didn't know any of it. Not because I was hiding it, I just stopped offering pieces of myself to people who never noticed when I went quiet. I typed back, "I'll be there." Not because I was curious, not because I cared about the announcement, but because saying no required an explanation, and explanations required energy I didn't want to spend. I set my phone down and returned to work. That evening, I caught myself wondering what the exciting news could be. Marcus's engagement, maybe. Emily's promotion. Something about the vow renewal they'd mentioned last Christmas. Something that would require my enthusiasm, my support, my invisible labor of celebrating people who forgot I existed. I felt nothing but mild disinterest. And somewhere beneath that, relief that I could feel so little at all. The project launched on a Thursday morning, and by Friday afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Congratulations from mentors I hadn't spoken to in years, LinkedIn messages from industry leaders I'd only admired from a distance. A former professor sent a text. "Saw the feature in Tech Innovate. I always knew you'd do something extraordinary." My team took me out to drinks. A colleague I barely knew outside of meetings hugged me in the hallway and said my work was going to change things. I stood in the center of all that recognition and felt something unfamiliar, visible. The family group chat was silent, not because they were withholding, they simply didn't know. I'd never mentioned it. And watching the messages pour in from people who were essentially strangers, I realized I didn't want to tell them anymore. I drafted a message once, late on a Sunday night. Casual, understated. "Big week at work, project I've been leading finally went public." I stared at it for 5 minutes, imagining the responses. A quick "congrats" from Emily, maybe a thumbs up from Marcus if he saw it between meetings, my mother asking if I was still coming to dinner, as if I hadn't said anything at all. I deleted it. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. There was a strange clarity in that moment, like watching my family through glass. I could see them, their group chat lighting up about Marcus's new car, Emily's vacation photos, my mother's excitement about the mysterious dinner announcement. But I couldn't feel them anymore. The anger I'd carried for years had evaporated, replaced by something quieter and more permanent. Distance. I'd been sleeping better since the move. 8 hours a night, uninterrupted. I woke up without the low-grade anxiety that used to sit in my chest like a stone. I didn't check my phone compulsively anymore, hoping for a message that never came. I'd stopped performing the role of the family organizer, the peacekeeper, the one who remembered everyone's lives while they forgot mine. I'd been creating distance for months without realizing it. The night of the dinner, I stood in front of my closet, choosing an outfit for people who wouldn't notice what I wore. I felt like I was getting ready for a meeting with strangers who happened to share my DNA. Polite, professional, present, but not really there at all. I arrived 7 minutes late, and they were already seated, laughing about something Marcus had said. My mother stood to hug me, her perfume the same as it had been my entire life. "There she is." My father squeezed my shoulder. Emily waved from across the table, mid-story. I slid into the empty seat, and the conversation resumed as if I'd never interrupted it. How's the new apartment?" my mother asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Emily lit up, pulling out her phone to show photos of her balcony, her kitchen renovations, the vintage mirror she'd found at an estate sale. My parents studied each image like it was gallery-worthy. "And Marcus," my father said, turning with that particular smile he reserved for his oldest. "Tell us about the promotion. Your mother's been bragging to everyone." Marcus laughed, humble in the performative way successful people are, and launched into a story about his new role. My mother touched his arm when he mentioned his salary, pride radiating off her in waves. I sipped my water and watched them like I was behind glass at an aquarium. No one asked about my move. No one mentioned my work. No one said, "Rachel Williams, what's new with you?" It wasn't cruelty, it was habit. I had trained them over years not to expect anything from me, and they obliged. The waitress came, Orders were placed. My father told a story about a client. Emily showed more photos. My mother asked Marcus if he was seeing anyone. The conversation flowed around me, never quite landing unless I forced it to. I didn't force it anymore. There was something almost peaceful in the observation. The way my mother's hand always found Marcus when she was proud. The way my father's eyes softened when Emily laughed. The way I could sit in silence for 10 minutes and no one noticed. Then my mother tapped her wine glass with her ring, the sound cutting through the noise of the restaurant. "We have incredible news," she said, her face glowing. "Your father and I are renewing our vows in 3 months, and we want all 3 of you to play special roles in the ceremony." Marcus grinned. Emily gasped with delight. I smiled politely and waited for them to tell me what they needed me to organize. My mother was mid-sentence, describing the venue, a garden overlooking the water, string lights, a small ceremony, when a woman approached our table. She was polished, professional, maybe 40, the kind of person whose presence commanded attention without demanding it. She looked directly at me. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice warm but uncertain. "But are you Rachel Williams Chen? I recognized you from the article." The cable went silent. My mother's smile froze. My father looked up, confused. Marcus and Emily turned to stare at me. Yes, I said, feeling heat rise to my face. "That's me." The woman's face broke into a genuine smile. "I'm Jennifer Aldrich. I work in data architecture, adjacent to your field. I had to say something. Your work on the Sustainability Integration Project was absolutely groundbreaking. The way you structured the scalability model, industry-changing. We've been talking about it in our firm for weeks." I felt my family's eyes on me like physical weight. Thank you," I managed, trying to stay composed. "I really appreciate that." "Would you mind if I connected you on LinkedIn?" she asked. "I'd love to follow your work." "Of course," I said, pulling out my phone with hands that felt strange and distant. We exchanged information. She thanked me again, apologized once more for the interruption, and walked back to her table. The silence she left behind was suffocating. My mother was the first to speak. "What article?" I set my phone down carefully. "A feature in Tech Innovate about the project I've been leading for the last 2 years. It launched 3 weeks ago." "You didn't mention that," my father said, not accusatory, just factual. "I did," I said quietly, 3 months ago, in the group chat, when the timeline was announced. Marcus pulled out his phone. Scrolling, his face changed. "You said," he stopped, "big project coming up at work." That was it, one line. "And no one responded," I said. Emily shifted in her seat, uncomfortable. "I thought you were just, I don't know, busy?" My mother shook her head. "I would have remembered if you told me something this important." I didn't argue. I just picked up my water glass and took a slow sip. The weight at the table had shifted. Something unspoken was forming in the air between us. Recognition, maybe, or the beginning of it. My family looked at me like they were seeing someone they didn't quite know. My father cleared his throat. "Well, that's wonderful, Rachel Williams. Congratulations." "Thank you," I said. But we all knew the congratulations had come too late, and from the wrong person. The dinner continued, but the rhythm had broken. My mother recovered first, the way she always did, pivoting with forced brightness. "So, tell us about this project, sweetheart. What exactly do you do?" The question was so broad, so vague, that I almost laughed. She was asking me to explain 2 years of work, a career she'd never asked about, a life she knew nothing about. "I lead infrastructure development for sustainable tech integration, large-scale implementation." "That sounds complicated," she said, smiling like she'd offered me something. "It is." The silence stretched. She didn't know what else to ask. Emily spoke next, her voice smaller than usual. "I think I saw you post something about it. On Instagram, maybe? A few months ago?" "Probably," I said. "I meant to read it. Things have been crazy." Marcus set his phone down. "I should have responded to your messages. I meant to. I always mean to." My father said nothing.
He stared at his plate like the answer to something was written in the grain of the steak.
Then my mother tried again, grasping for something to make this right. You know what? You should do a reading at the vow renewal, something about your work, or just share your success with the family. We'll make it a celebration of all three of you. I looked at her and saw exactly what this was. Not an inclusion, but a showcase. Another opportunity to display her successful children, to make my achievement about her. I appreciate it, I said carefully, but I'll actually be traveling that weekend. There's a conference in Denver I confirmed this morning. Her face fell. You can't miss our vow renewal. I didn't know about it until tonight, I said, my voice calm. The conference has been scheduled for months. Why didn't you say something sooner? Emily asked, frustration creeping into her tone. I set my fork down and looked at her directly. For the same reason I didn't mention the article, I said quietly, or the move, or the promotion before that, because I stopped expecting anyone to remember. The words hung in the air like smoke. No one spoke. This was the first time I had ever named it aloud, not in anger, not in tears, just plainly, like stating a fact that had always been true. Marcus opened his mouth. We're all busy. He stopped. The defense died on his lips because he realized, even as he said it, how hollow it sounded. My mother's expression shifted. Not guilt exactly, but discomfort, the kind that comes from seeing yourself clearly and not recognizing the reflection. My father finally looked up. His eyes met mine, and for the first time in years, I saw something close to understanding. But understanding doesn't undo years of absence, and I wasn't asking it to. I didn't storm out. I didn't deliver a speech. I finished my meal. When the server brought the check, I pulled out my card and paid for my portion before anyone could offer to split it. My mother reached for the bill out of habit, but I was faster. I have an early morning, I said, standing and collecting my coat. My mother stood too, reaching for a hug. Rachel Williams, we need to talk about this. I let her hug me, but my body didn't soften into it the way it used to. There's nothing to talk about. But I hope the vow renewal is beautiful. I meant it and not meaning it at the same time. Really. I hugged my father, waved to Marcus and Emily, and then I walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, my footsteps steady and certain. The drive home was silent. No music, no phone calls, just the hum of the engine and the blow of streetlights sliding past my windows. I waited for the anger to come, or the sadness, or the guilt, but there was nothing, just a quiet, settled sense of being done. This hadn't been a confrontation I'd planned. I hadn't prepared a speech or orchestrated a reveal. I'd simply existed, and someone else had held up the mirror. A stranger at a restaurant who knew my work better than the people who raised me. That was the revenge, I realized. Not something I did to them, just the natural consequence of absence meeting awareness. I thought about Jennifer Aldrich, the way she'd looked at me with respect I'd never seen in my family's eyes. How she'd known my name, my work, the details of something I'd built with my own hands. She was a stranger, and yet she'd seen me more clearly in 2 minutes than my family had in 28 years. When I got home, I didn't call anyone, didn't send a follow-up text, didn't block them or write an angry message I'd regret later. I just stopped. No more organizing birthdays, no more mediating conflicts, no more pretending this was a relationship instead of a performance. I made tea, sat on my couch, and exhaled. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel powerful. I just felt free. Like I'd been carrying weight for so long I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body, and I'd finally set it down. The messages came in waves over the following weeks. My mother first, 3 days after the dinner, a long text about how they'd never meant to make me feel unseen, how proud they were, how much they loved me. It read like an apology and a defense at the same time. Marcus sent a shorter message. I'm sorry, I should have paid more attention. I want to do better.
Emily forwarded an article about sibling dynamics and birth order with the caption, "This made me think of us." I read each message carefully, and then I set my phone down. Not out of spite, I genuinely didn't know what to say. The apologies felt performative, like they were seeking relief from their own discomfort rather than offering real understanding. They wanted absolution I wasn't ready to give.
I didn't respond for days, then a week, then I sent brief, polite replies that said nothing. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. No invitations to continue the conversation. The vow renewal happened without me. I saw the photos on Instagram, my parents beaming, Marcus in a suit, Emily holding a bouquet as she read something that probably made everyone cry. They looked happy. I felt nothing. I was in Denver that weekend, presenting my work to a room full of people who understood what I'd built. I networked with professionals who asked intelligent questions, exchanged cards with executives who saw my value immediately. I had dinner with colleagues who remembered details from conversations we'd had months before. The contrast was so stark it was almost funny. Back home, I noticed things shifting in small ways. My mother's birthday came and went. No one remembered to send a card because I'd always been the one to organize it. The family group chat stayed silent for days at a time because I wasn't there to bridge the gaps with questions or updates. Emily mentioned in a message that she'd forgotten our cousin's wedding date because someone usually sent reminders. I hadn't cut them off. I just stopped being the glue. In November, my mother invited me to Christmas. I responded the same day. I'll be working, but thank you. It was true. It was also a choice. They were learning what it felt like when the invisible child stopped making themselves available. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my apartment, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view I chose, and I realize I've stopped counting the days since that dinner. My career has only grown. I'm consulting on projects I once would have only dreamed of touching. I've built friendships with people who remember the small things, how I take my coffee, the name of my favorite author, the fact that I hate surprise parties. I've started running in the mornings. I sleep through the night. I still talk to my family. Brief exchanges. Cordial. Surface level. My mother texts on holidays. Marcus sends articles he thinks I'd find interesting, though he's usually wrong. Emily likes my Instagram posts. We exist in each other's orbits the way distant planets do, aware but not connected. The relationships haven't been repaired, but they also haven't exploded. They've just become what they always were, superficial. I know some people expect the story to end one of two ways: complete estrangement, where I block everyone and never speak to them again, or tearful reconciliation, where we all cry and promise to do better and the credits roll on our newly healed family. Neither happened. They remember my birthday now. I respond with a thank you. There's no depth to it, no real effort to rebuild what was never actually built in the first place. And I've stopped waiting for them to suddenly understand, to wake up one day and realize what they missed. I've accepted that some people are only capable of surface-level connection, and that's not a reflection of my worth, it's a limitation of theirs. This isn't bitterness, it's clarity. I don't regret that dinner, even though I never planned it. Sometimes the truth doesn't come out through confrontation, it comes out through contrast, when the gap between how others see you and how your family doesn't becomes too obvious to ignore. I didn't orchestrate that moment. A stranger did it for me, simply by knowing my name. And maybe that's the point. I didn't need my family to learn the truth so I could punish them. I needed them to learn it so I could finally stop waiting for them to care. I've built a life now where I'm not invisible, where my presence matters because I've chosen people who notice when I'm gone. That's not revenge. That's just freedom. And it turns out, freedom doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be lived.